This is Chicken Philosophy, the Meccan Revelations Part 59, in which I will pick up right where Edward left off in Part 58. If you would like to start at the beginning of the playlist or anywhere on the playlist, you can click right there. That's the playlist. Bye. All right. Cool. Hope everybody's doing well. It's a nice day today. A little cloudy, but not rainy yet. We'll see how it goes for the rest of the day. All right. So Edward promised last time that this time we would learn about, because we've gone through all of these now, we've used all of these, but as far as talking about them, we've gone through all of them except for one. Ood Bakana. Editor Edward, could you enlighten us a little bit about what Bakana means? I'm pretty sure you mean Bukhara. It does look like an N, though, so I can see how you got confused. Bukhara is an ancient city located in central Uzbekistan, renowned for its historical significance as a major stop on the Silk Road and a center of Islamic culture and scholarship. It boasts numerous well-preserved historical sites, including mosques, madrasas, and bazaars dating back centuries. Okay, Bukhara. Well, I should have known when I found out that Samarkand was Samarkand that one time. Now, you said this is a place in Uzbekistan. I feel like I've heard that name before.
It locates between Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and assholes Uzbekistan.
Right. Thank you, Borat, for introducing the country of Uzbekistan to me and no doubt many others in the geographically challenged states of America. All right. And as far as Samarkand, we went over that and looked at some of their mosques and such in Meccan Revelation Part 56. So you can check out the first, 10 or 15 minutes of that at some point. No doubt I get to the incense and talk about Samarkand. Or I think something appeared on the screen about Samarkand, if I recall correctly. Okay, cool. And if you were wondering what the right side thumbnail is, that's a picture of some iconic mosque or other in Bukhara, Uzbekistan, at night. And okay, so now we're gonna find out or be reminded what Oud Bukhara smells like. I'm sure it's lovely. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. It smells like incense in a good way. And that's high praises coming from me. Okay. So the incense is finished. We're doing fire first today, then water, if you can call this water. And I've got a black cup of coffee in a new Twin Peaks cup. You have to either be sharp-eyed or already a fan of Twin Peaks. If you are, then you would recognize the Double R Diner sign. And that tastes like black Nescafe. I wish I could say it was a damn fine cup of coffee, but, All right. There it is. That's done. And, cool. Is there anything that is wanting to come out of my head? I've been watching, because as you know, we listen to a lot of Jean-Michel Jarre. I've heard people recently refer to him as Jean-Michel Jarre. I had a Swedish friend correct me because I called him Jarre, and he said, no, Jarre. And so but there's some folks in Britain just saying Jean-Michel Jarre. All right, cool. That's easier than Jarre, and probably less incorrect than Jarre. Anyway, yeah. There were a lot of people who in their own way were like pioneers of electronic music in the 70s. Devo, of course, being among my favorite. There's a few who like made their own drum. There was no such thing as like a drum kit, so they invented drum kits. So now apparently Jean-Michel Jarre invented drum kits and Devo invented drum kits before drum kits were a thing. I wonder who invented them first. I'm going to put my money on Devo. But anyway, fun stuff. I'll just, for today, just for fun, if you're interested, you can check it out afterward. It'll be in the description. This is about, when he first appeared on the scene with Oxygen, which probably we hear more than most things. On the white pedal, we often play the concerts in China, which I think some of them were recycled from Oxygen and whatnot. But anyway, did I break it? It fell on the floor the other day. Now it pops open too easily. What can I say? I'm besmirching the legacy of... I don't know if that's the right word. All right. I think that's everything that was like wanting to come out of my head. We had a pretty good Zen episode on Buddhist books yesterday, and we'll put that in the end screen so you can look forward to that. All right. So without further ado, let's get to the Hafiz Bibliomancy poem, and we'll try to get into a receptive Sufi sort of mood, entering into like... For you Christians, it's sort of like Songs of Solomon, but more poetic, more romantic, more sexual, more like raw. Like if you read Songs of Solomon, you have to kind of get abstract to feel anything, But this makes you feel stuff. So let's see what he makes us feel today. Tired of speaking sweetly. Love wants to reach out and manhandle us. Different time. Break all our teacup talk of God. So, to be clear, the male author of this poem is identifying himself, and indeed all of us, as the woman in a heterosexual relationship with God, as a sort of metaphor where God is the husband, God is love, like Jesus. So this is post-Jesus, so they had a bit of Jesus in them. Never mind. Not in like a holy blood, holy grail sense. If you had the courage and could give the beloved his choice, some nights he would just drag you around the room by your hair. Let's see where this goes. Ripping from your grip all those toys in the world that bring you no joy. Yeah, they just vibrate. It's not... Love sometimes gets tired of speaking sweetly and wants to rip to shreds all your erroneous notions of truth. Okay. Aside from the problematic, abusive husband metaphor, I can get into God wanting to rip to shreds all of your erroneous concepts of truth. It's a weird metaphor, but is there a better one? I don't know. Let's just keep reading. That make you fight within yourself, dear one, and with others. See, it's just tough love. Causing the world to weep on too many fine days. You ever have that? Where you like read your news feed, watch the news, hear from the neighbors what's going on out there somewhere, some horrible things. I mean, they're horrible. I don't mean to diminish all the horrible things that are going on. And then, like, as an afterthought, you look outside and you're like, God damn, it's a beautiful day. There's birds chirping. There's, like, it's weird that wasn't the first thing I saw or noticed or thought about in this day, right? Reminds me of this. God wants to manhandle us, lock us inside of a tiny room with himself. I mean, some people are into it, and if there's an understanding and a safe word, like everything, but... And practice his drop kick. The beloved sometimes wants to do us a great favor.
Do me a favour, don't. I will do you a favour, Mallet.
Same kind of thing. Snatch is a good movie. Hold us upside down and shake all the nonsense out. I mean, I've had that urge. I'd grab someone by the heels and shake all the nonsense out, But when we hear he is in such a playful, drunken mood, most everyone I know quickly packs their bags and hightails it out of town. Yes, when Allah is in a playful, drunken, abusive husband mood, I can understand why some folks would have that reaction. But it's an interesting, problematic picture. Sometimes when you read poetry from like the 50s or 60s, I know some of my dad's old poetry, I'm like, oh shit, this would not have been okay in 1992. 1991, he could have gotten away with it. But yeah, so this was 1400s. It's cute in a fucked up way. All right, I get it. I hear what you're saying, Hafiz. I hear you. But I might have tried to go for a different metaphor. But they're going for they're just harping on that Songs of Solomon, Song of Songs thing, where Jesus is the bridegroom and we're the bride, and then there's the bridegroom's friends. I don't know who they're supposed to be. If there's God and mankind, are those the angels or something? I don't know. But yeah, not specifically Songs of Solomon, but that's an early example of a straightforward telling of like, okay, God is husband, we are wife. And you know how wives are supposed to be obedient to their husbands? Well, in a similar way. I'm not saying this, I'm saying that tradition says it. So we're going to take a fine-tooth comb and comb through some tradition and see what we can find. Luckily, we're not reading like straight-up mainstream Islam. We're reading fringe, mystical, some might say heretical, some folks will say Sufism is not Islam. But that's kind of like saying like Presbyterians aren't Christian. It's like, who are you talking to? A Greek Orthodox person? It's the definition of it is it's mystic Islam. So there you go. All right. Picking up where Edward left off. Oh, yeah. Remember there were all those heavens and the different prophets and the different heavens, and we got to find out that Isildur, or Idris was another name for Enoch. Editor Edward enlightened us about that. So now we're moving on to Aaron and the fifth heaven. If you're scratching your head going, who's Aaron? Moses' brother. When you think Islam, you think Moses, Aaron, Jesus, John the Baptist, and Muhammad, right? If not, you should. And Enoch. Okay. It's sort of like, I compare it to the Mormons. When you think Mormons, you think God, Jesus, Elohim, Joseph Smith. It's just same but different. More different than the same, but more same than different. Depends on how up close you are. If you're looking from space, then you might be like, yeah. There's Mecca, there's Salt Lake City, Utah. That's one thing, and then there's everything else. That's everything else. But from up close, never mind. I'll just keep reading. So this is Aaron and the fifth heaven. Next. Oh, yeah, so this is Ibn Arabi in his Miraj. So he's ascending through the plains, and he's writing down the conversations he had with the prophets while he was on his way. Next, I alighted to stay with Aaron, and there I found Yahya, John the Baptist, who had already reached him before me. So I said to Yahya, quote, I didn't see you on my path. Is there some other path there? End quote. Remember that scene from the 1978 Superman where Clark runs and gets home before the stupid jocks, And he replied, quote, each person has a path that no one else but he travels. End quote. I said, quote, then where are they, these different paths? Let's bring up the tree of life. Let's bring up the other paths. Anyway, then where are they, these different paths? End quote. Then he answered, quote, they come to be through the traveling itself. End quotes. Now we're doing italics, so it's our old pal Michel Chodkowitz, that guy, talking. After Aaron then greets Ibn Arabi as the perfectly accomplished heir of the prophet, end quote, he goes on to explain how he became both a prophet and also a law-giving messenger participating in the revelation appropriate to that rank at the request of his brother Moses. Back to Ibn Arabi. ... I said, quote, O Aaron, some people among the true knowers have claimed that the existence of the external world disappeared with regard to them, so that they see nothing but God, and so that nothing of the world remains with them that might distract them in comparison with God. Nor is there any doubt that they really are in that spiritual rank, as opposed to those like you. Now, God has informed us that you said to your brother Moses, when he was angry with you for having allowed the Israelites to worship the golden calf, quote within quotes, ... so do not cause our enemies to gloat over me, end quote, Quran 7:151. Thus, you posited their having a certain power over you in the external world, and this condition is different from the condition of those true knowers who experience the disappearance of the external world, end quote. Then he replied, quote, they spoke sincerely about their experience. However, they did not have any more than what was given them by their immediate experience. But look and see. Did what disappeared from them in that state actually disappear from the world? End quote. No, I answered. Quote, no, end quote, I answered. He said, quote, then they were lacking in the knowledge of the way things are, to the extent of what they missed, since the world was non-existent for them. So they were lacking the true reality to the extent of that aspect of the world which was veiled from them. because the whole world is precisely the self-manifestation of the truly real. For whoever really knows the truly real. So where are you going? It is only a reminder to the worlds, Quran 81:26 through 27, of the way things are. End quote. Perfection is nothing but its or his existence. So whoever misses it is not the perfect one. And I would note, you remember how I've stopped pointing out every bracket parenthesis? There were plenty, which is why it was so verbose unnecessarily in parts for the sake of clarifying what they're saying. The original text wasn't that verbose. But here, or his is in bracket parentheses. So let me try reading it without that. Just because we can handle God being an it for a moment, right? Assuming that's what we're talking about. Perfection is nothing but its existence. The existence of perfection? So whoever misses it is not the perfect one. 3 dots. I also used to like to point out the bracket parentheses because they're open to interpretation. This is like the interpretation of the translators and editors. Perhaps they're wrong. Yeah. All right. I'm not saying I'm right. They're more expert in this field than I am, but I mean, Ibn Arabi might be wrong, but like the translators guessing what Ibn Arabi's saying might also be wrong. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know what you're saying, all right?
You know the parable of the blind men and the elephant? What part of the elephant is Ibn Arabi grasping onto? Comment below. Helps with engagement. The algorithm's like, oh, there's engagement. Oh, there's just people talking. Next. Moses and the 6th heaven. Now, I can't help wondering if these heavens go from top to bottom or from bottom to top. You know what I mean? So is the 6th heaven the closest, second closest to God, or is it the second closest to earth? I tend to think it's the second closest to earth, because didn't he meet Jesus? And okay, so Joseph is in the 3rd heaven. Adam is in the 1st heaven. Jesus and John the Baptist are in the 2nd heaven. Joseph and the amazing Technicolor dream coat, not band coat. But it would be cool if it was a band coat. So I'm going to keep saying band coat. I'm going to get it wrong on purpose. Idris, that's Enoch and the 4th heaven, middle heaven, they call it. No, they don't. Aaron and the 5th heaven, Moses and the 6th heaven. All right, I think it's safe to say the 1st heaven is the highest, 7th heaven is the bottommost. But usually when people say 7th heaven, they mean the highest heaven, right? And 7th level of hell is the lowest. I'm confused. Maybe Ibn Arabi isn't the same as like most people in colloquial American speech. That's a fair guess, I think. Moses and the 6th heaven. This is italics, so it's Michel. Ibn Arabi begins his discussion with Moses by thanking him for having insisted that Muhammad, during the final trial, descending stage of his mirage, returned to ask God to reduce the number of daily prayers prescribed for his community. Did Moses do that? Moses replies that, quote, "This is a benefit of knowledge reached through direct experience, for there is a spiritual condition that can only be perceived through immediate contact." End quote. I don't do a very good Charlton Heston, unfortunately. Guns don't kill people. Sorry. Ibn Arabi then mentions that it was Moses striving, quote, striving for the sake of others, end quote, which first led him to the burning bush, which led him to the doctor to say, you got anything for a burning bush? That's disrespectful, BT. Come on. That's something Gwydion would say. what? Where were we? That eventually brought him all the good, if you can call it that. Moses responds that, quote, man's striving for the sake of others is only a striving for himself. I remember when I showed that cartoon Prince of Egypt to my buddy Chris, and they were fighting the Pharaoh and, all this. And then at the very end, you see like the masses, thousands, however many people, the Israelites, the Hebrews, whatever. And then at the very top, you have Moses coming up high, up above all of them with his 10 commandments. And Chris was like, oh, now he gets to be the Pharaoh. That was his takeaway. Now, rule of law is better than kings. It's an American story, Chris. What? I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Quote, man's striving for the sake of others is only a striving for his self in the truth of things. End quote. I.e., when he discovers who he really is, who he really is, and that the thankfulness which flows from this on the part of all concerned is one of the highest forms of remembering and praising God. Okay. 3 dots. This is Ibn Arabi again. After that I said to him, quote, surely God has chosen you over the people with his message and his word, end quote. But you requested the vision of God. What's with the end quote? You're pulling a Sonu there, Michelle. Right. After that I said to him, surely God has chosen you over the people with his message and word. Oh, that's a quote within quotes. But you requested the vision of God, while the messenger of God said that, quote within quotes, not one of you will see his Lord until he dies, end quote within quotes, end quote. Things are a little confusing with the quotes there, Michelle and friends. It's page 225, if you could fix that in an upcoming. So he said, quote, this is Moses talking, and it was just like that. When I asked him for the vision of God, he answered me, so that, quote within quotes, I fell down stunned, and quote within quotes, Quran 7:143. When you woke up this morning, did you think you'd hear me doing an impression of Moses quoting the Quran? Then I saw him in my, quote within quotes, state of being stunned, and quote within quotes, end quote. I said, quote, while you were dead, end quote within quotes. End quote. He replied, quote, while I was dead, end quote. It actually says, while dead. He replied, while dead. And then the bracket parentheses to clarify the meaning for us dummies. 3 dots. He said, quote, 3 dots, so I did not see God until I had died. This is Moses talking. It was then that I awakened, so that I knew who I saw. And it was because of that that I said, quote within quotes, I have returned to you, end quote within quotes, Quran 7:143. Since I did not return to anyone but him. End quote within quotes. Then I says to the guy, then I said to him, quote, you are among the group of those who know God. So what did you consider the vision of God to be when you asked him for it? End quote. And he said, quote, I considered it to be necessary because of rational necessity. End quote. I said, quote, but then what was it that distinguished you from others? End quote. He said, quote, I was seeing him all along, and yet I didn't used to know that it was him. But when my dwelling was changed, and I saw him, then I knew who I saw. Therefore, when I awoke, I was no longer veiled. And my vision of God went on accompanying me throughout all eternity. So this is the difference between us and those who are veiled, Quran 83:15, from their knowledge of God by what they see. Yet when they die, they see the truly real, since the dwelling of divine vision, in bracket parentheses, distinguishes him for them. Therefore, if they were returned to this world as I was, they would say the same thing as we did. End quote. I said, quote, then if death were the dwelling of the vision of God, every dead person would see him. But God has described them, Quran 83:15, as being veiled from seeing him. End quote. And there's a question mark and an exclamation point. As veiled from seeing him? Is that a question with an exclamation point? Anyway, doesn't matter. He said, quote, yes, those are the ones who are veiled from the knowledge that what they see is God. You ever gone on a Ouija board and been like, are you in heaven or hell? And they start slowly spelling out abyss or whatever. And then you ask them to describe it. Nothing. Is it like darkness? No, not even darkness. You know, that kind of thing. It's like these are probably the ones that don't realize that they're just dwelling in God. You know, I think that's why they call it the abyss, right? Never mind. That's a sidetrack. Unrelated. He said, yes, no, I already read that. But what if you yourself had to meet a person with whom you were not personally acquainted, whom you were looking for simply by name and because you needed him? You could meet him and exchange greetings with him, along with the whole group of those you encountered, without discovering his identity. Yes, it's a plot that happens in many movies, where, like Yoda, for instance. I'm looking for a great warrior, not some muppet, you know, like, never mind. If you could meet him and exchange greetings with him, like a secret password.
I have friends everywhere.
So do I. Anyway, well, yes. Along with the whole group of those you encountered without discovering his identity, then you would have seen him and yet not have seen him. You would continue looking for him while he was right where you could see him, like Luke looking for Yoda when Yoda's right there, right? Hence, one cannot rely on anything but knowledge. That is why we, knowers of God, in the biblical sense, according to Hafiz, in the worst way, according to Hafiz, according to what we read today, you know, it's hard to anyway. The toxic masculinity of Islam is one of the things that I like to try to get back behind, to show, oh, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's some good stuff here. But Hafiz makes it a little challenging when we start the episode with a metaphor about how abusive of a husband God is to us. Anyway, there's no punchline there. I'm just saying. The knowers of God have said that knowledge is his very essence, since if knowledge were not his very essence, what was relied on, i.e. our knowledge, would be other than God, for nothing can be relied on but knowledge. End quote. I said, quote, now God indicated the mountain to you, Quran 7:143, and mentioned about himself that, quote, he manifested himself to the mountain, end quote, Quran 7:143. So how do these theophanies differ? All of that question, so how do these theophanies differ, was in bracket parentheses. It wasn't in the Ibn Arabi. Michel added it, just to so you know where he's going with this line of, end quote. Then he replied, quote, nothing resists his self-manifestation, Therefore, the particular condition necessarily changes according to the locus of each theophany. Hence, for the mountain being crushed flat was like Moses being stunned. God says Moses, Quran 7:144, and he who crushed it stunned me. End quote. I said to him, quote, God has taken charge of teaching me, so I only know about him to the extent of what he bestows upon me. End quote. Then he replied, quote, that is just how he acts with the knowers of God. So take your spiritual knowledge from him, not from the world. And indeed, you will never take such knowledge except to the extent of your predisposition. So do not let yourself be veiled from him by the likes of us. Bracket parentheses, prophets. And bracket parentheses, hey, are you including the Prophet Muhammad, blessed be he, in that statement? Because if so, Ibn Arabi, bury this halfway through 20 volumes of books and keep it in your study, in your library, because Damascus in the 1300s isn't the safest place to be saying shit like that. Just some advice, but I like it. I like me some heresy or some heterodoxy. Check out Zen 11. If you don't know what heterodoxy is, I didn't, but I do now, thanks to Editor Edward. Anyway, what? For you will never come to know about him by means of us anything but what we know about him through his self-manifestation. Thus we too only give you knowledge about him to the extent of your predisposition. Hence there is no difference between learning from us directly and learning from learning from us and directly from God. So attach yourself to him. It sounded pretty different. So the prophet sees a certain amount and then sees the person they're talking to and tries to give them what they learned, but to the extent that they're able to comprehend it. So that's 2 steps removed. So if you're learning directly from God, that's 0 steps removed, right? I think so, yeah. Because the 2 steps removed are in the same dude. When he gets it, he only gets part of it. And when he teaches it, he only teaches part of what he got. When you get it directly, maybe it's 1 step removed. When you have gnosis, theosis, is that the right word? When you become one, when you start peaking on acid, as the kids say, then you just know. The only problem is you can't communicate with anyone else because you're like, it's like it's now, man. It's now. It's no, it's not in the books. It's now. It's not yet. It's now. Like the continuous, And they're like, no, man, I think you're on acid. No, I'm talking about... It's frustrating. So just keep it to yourself and smile. Be still and know that I am God, someone once said, right? Whatever, Edward. BT. What are we reading here? Oh, yeah. Thus we too only give... Yes. Hence there... Yes. For he only sent us to call you all to him, not to call you to us. His message is a word. Then can you make a little room for the folks next door who are calling him to them in another way, in another language, with other metaphors? You fucking... I'm just, Abrahamics, man, Second generation Abrahamics, the original Abrahamics got some bad habits from the second and third generation Abrahamics, in my humble opinion. What's third generation? Mormons. We've been over this. And Islam, if you count Jesus as one generation. Second generation. Ignore what I'm saying. Words are coming out. I don't know. I'd say a little bit of Gwydion today. Sorry. Gwydion doesn't apologize, though. Or does he? I don't know. Sometimes. What are we doing here? Yeah, he only sent us to call you to him. His message is a word that is the same between us and you, that we should worship none but God, and that we should not associate anything with him, and that some of us should not take others as lords instead of God. End quote, Quran 3:64. I said, quote, that is how it came to the Quran, end quote. He said, quote, and that is how he is, end quote. I said, quote, with what did you hear God's speech? End quote. He said, quote, with my hearing. End quote. I said, quote, and what is your hearing? End quote. He said, quote, he, bracket parentheses, is, and bracket parentheses, end quote. I said, quote, then by what were you distinguished from other men? End quote. I would note that this isn't the first time you've asked him that question. I think he hasn't answered the question satisfactorily. Fair enough. What makes you so special, Moses, that you got adopted by Pharaoh's daughter or whatever? What? He said, quote, by an immediate personal experience in that regard, which can only be known by the person who actually experiences it, end quote. I said, quote, so those who possess such immediate experiences are like that, end quote. Quote, yes, end quote, he said, quote, and their experiences are according to their spiritual ranks, end quote. All right. Cool. Editor Edward, could you play from the self-titled album Vast? I think the track is Nile's Edge. The part that starts, Do You Regret? Could you play that?
Do you regret what you saw? Floating softly at the Nile's edge.
I assume he's talking about Moses in a basket, right? It's a good album. It's a good song. Moses and Aaron. Today was the Moses and Aaron episode. Well, all right. Wacky one is what it is. All right. Sometimes. I don't know. Sometimes the metaphor isn't worth it. Sometimes the medium is the message. In other words, did you get anything? Did you get anything in all that? Did you get any closer to oneness with God, any closer to peace and tranquility in spite of all that other stuff? Well, I know I did, because I'm somewhat immune, and I have a lot of practice trying to find the undefinable essence hiding in the complex and problematic forms. If you can find something ineffable and divine in anything that I've said in this episode, then surely you can find it in that obnoxious neighbor, that obnoxious relative, that obnoxious government employee, that guy or gal or whatever on the phone, that stupid show that, whatever. Silence is better. Silence and stillness. Don't forget to stretch. Don't forget to drink water. Don't forget to breathe. If you forget to breathe, you might just be taking shallow breaths. And this doesn't count as water. There's water in it, but it doesn't count. Don't forget to stretch. A little bit of exercise. Water. Breathe. And enjoy the silence when it comes. You can sit upright and to the point where you forget that you're sitting. Find that point where it takes the least amount of effort to stay upright. Doesn't matter what you do with your hands. We're not doing mudras today. Mudras optional. Speaking of Zazen, the end screen. Yeah, so we read the Platform Sutra. The cool thing, one cool thing about that reading was that several times he mentions the Tao, which, I mean, if you're familiar with like basic, like the names of and basic one-line descriptions of the various religions of the world, then you would note that Buddhism is not Taoism, and yet Zen has a little bit of Taoism in it. So that's interesting. A lot of flowings back and forth. Sometimes the lines between things aren't as rigid as, like, for example, we assume they are if we grow up in the Abrahamic world. Because surely Christianity is not Islam. Surely the pagans aren't, whatever, you know, these hard lines between things. But then you go to Calcutta and you go into someone's house or room and you find a shrine that has Ganesh and Saraswati, Jesus, and a rosary. You go, what? And then they start explaining Sri Ramakrishna, and you go, oh, I should look into that. Huh. Anyway. All right, so we're going to do the Zen. I can't think of any other links to put up right now. I've got a better idea. Oh, hey, Gwydion, what's up? You remember, BT, that favor that I did for you recently? Gwydion, we're on the air right now. I really don't think it's appropriate. It's all right, I'm not going to get into specifics. All I'm saying is recently there was a Gwydion's Poetry episode with the Great Seal, the Gwydion's Great Seal on the thumbnail. You mean Gwydion's Poetry 25? Actually, no, it was Gwydion's Poetry 25. And then we're even, and then I don't have to do any more shit for you if I just do this one thing? Yeah. Okay, so you heard the man. We're going to have Gwydion's Poetry Part 25, which I believe is Pymander 993, and 995. Zen 11, the Platform Sutra 2, I think it's called, down here. Check out the Platform Sutra, it's better. Play that, click on Gwydion's Poetry, it's better. Until next time.